So.
We're just outside the Central Business District, on the east side of Central Business District. I wanted to show you a fine piece of carving here, which is a wakahuia. It was gifted to the Avon-Otakaro network, and it's about drawing together of communities, of people into one single vision for the east side of town. So it's meant to be symbolising the creation of a place of a lot of food and abundance, and that depends very much on living in harmony with the natural environment and restoring that environment so it becomes a source of food for body, mind and spirit. The most commonly used name in Māori for the river is Otakaro, and Takaro means game, so Otakaro means place of the game, and what we hope to do is turn the east into the playground of the city. We want to see a restoration of indigenous natural habitat in a very broad corridor along the river and interspersed with pocket parks of exotic parkland, recreational facilities on the water and off the water, cycleways, pathways, and enable the communities to reconnect with the river, because that's what's been lost. If we were to realise our dream, I mean, it takes a long time to grow indigenous habitat, so it could be 50 to 100 years before you see the legacy left behind. But I would hope to see something within 10 years. Signs, positive signs. The communities alongside the river, the communities that have left it, desperately need to see some hope and new life, a new spring happening here. Like it's starting to happen in the CBD. In the residential suburbs, it's probably about 2 years behind.
We're now in the upper reaches of the Avon River. This is the main river that goes through Christchurch. The system is a spring-fed system, so there's actually water bubbling up under the ground into the riverbed as we speak. It means there's relatively low flows, but it also means the river is quite sensitive to sedimentation and to contamination. One of the key issues coming out of the earthquake, because of all of the liquefaction and the fine silt that was generated, we now have a system that was already degraded, extremely degraded. There was also the issue of what's called lateral spread. When you have unconsolidated sediments, which is what Christchurch has been built on, if they are on a slope which you have near riverbanks, they move sideways, hence the term lateral spread. So we ended up with a river system which had increased sediment, narrowed banks, and of course, less capacity. So we have a flooding issue as well. Added to that, along effectively the whole Avon-Otakaro corridor, the land has dropped by about 0.5 metre to 1 metre. So we have a significant change in both the bed of the river, the width of the river, and also the land surrounding it having gone down.
Have there been greater flooding events in the last couple of years?
If you go through the eastern parts of Christchurch now, they've put in some temporary stop banks to try and prevent the river flow going into the suburban areas. But because the land has settled, stormwater can't get away. So you're now getting ponding occurring along the entire length of the Avon corridor that didn't occur before, because the land is now below the level of the river and cannot drain back into the river.
What are the opportunities now to try to address those concerns?
We certainly see that if you've got an area like the Avon-Otakaro corridor, where you have land that is no longer suitable for residential development, either because of the liquefaction risk or because of the flooding risk, you now have an opportunity to create a corridor park along the entire river system. So instead of treating the river like a drain, it can be made into a community asset. We would certainly see that there is plenty of opportunity to actually get more biodiversity planting. You can see in this small stretch we have here, the potential opportunity that could be created along the river system. We also need to be looking at the major sources of water quality contamination. Stormwater going directly into the river system and also sewage overflows are two of our major concerns. If you're looking at getting improved stormwater management, one of the biggest constraints in the past was the absence of land where you could put constructed wetlands to actually treat the stormwater. With the area that's now unsuitable for residential development, we now have an ideal opportunity to create sites for the constructed wetlands to treat that water.
It sounds like a tremendous vision. What sort of reactions have you had to this? Is it something that people are grabbing onto?
One of the first things we did as the Avon-Otakaro network was circulate a petition amongst the community. We were able to deliver to Parliament an 18,000 signature petition in support of the overall concept. The work in terms of what the long-term strategy would look like clearly has to wait until the situation facing people who have their homes in the red zone has been resolved. What is amazing is the level of support from those people for a concept like a corridor park that has a broad community asset. And one of the components that we've been looking at as part of the park is trying to retain some of the key elements that they relate to. There has been a plotting of some of the major trees that have been in that area that represent a long-term family history for those people. Trying to record those and incorporating that into a community park we see as being a very valid way of recognising the loss that they have had in terms of losing their homes in the red zone area.
Interesting.
Okay. We're just starting now from the CBD going toward the coast, and it's the very start of the residential red zone here. You'll find the roads all over the place around here. There's whole roads there. Just
That's a whole area that's
this
red
is
zone.
all red zone, so this is all to be demolished.
Anybody living in these houses still? Or?
Very few
Very
anymore.
few?
The deadline to get out and accept the government offer was last April. Some were given a 6-month extension, so you'll see if one or two still around. They're just demolishing this house here on the left
gosh,
as we
okay.
speak. So it's ongoing all the time right now. This was a street which is a mix of social housing, Housing New Zealand, rented accommodation, and owner-occupied housing. But it was a beautiful little cul-de-sac. Kids played, all the neighbourhood kids from the street here played out in the street, played football and stuff like that. It was a great community feeling. But unfortunately, that's all gone.
So you lived here?
I lived in this house here, and there's a big crack that ran, or 2 or 3 big cracks that ran right through our backyard that goes from one side of the neighbourhood right through to the river. And that opened up about, so big, and was filled up, bubbling up with liquefaction all the way through. Nobody could understand what was happened. It's like, you expect the ground to be solid underneath you, but it sort of changed all your perceptions of everything that's the foundation to your life experience. I brought up my family here, so it has a lot of meaning for me and my wife.
So that house is gone, been demolished, and that's what's going to happen.
This will happen all the way through, and it goes back about 2 or 3 blocks.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be just cleared land.
So your hope would be that something good comes out of this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what's helped us through this whole process of transitioning and moving out, was the hope that we don't want to see other people go through what we've been through. So I'd rather see this land turned into restored to its natural habitat and become part of a river park that goes right from here to the sea.
So I know you've been working hard on this idea of restoring the river. You've made a decision. I'd like to hear a little bit about that you're going to be working full-time as a full-time volunteer, an unpaid volunteer, it sounds like.
I'm hoping to get a bit of money for it, but yeah, I've given up
Why would you do that?
Something I feel very strongly about. Maybe it's part of my healing process to move myself from here.
The river is a source of healing.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
You're healing the river, and the river's healing the community.
Yep.
It's
part and parcel of the same thing, and that's very much part of the Maori way of looking at things as well.